Aunt Beyonce and the Blasted Cityscape by Jay Wilburn. Aunt B closed the door before Caper and Sia behind Caper and Sia, putting them out on the street. Even as the locks continued to click into place against the dangers out there, Caper asked, "Why does she always say that to us every time?" Sia eyed Caper with typical suspicion. She could never tell when the boy was screwing with her or was legitimately stupid from moment to moment. He was older than her, taller than her, and darker than her. Sia felt in her heart that she was smarter and more mature and surely better looking, if she did say so herself. Looking good in a city covered in dirt and dust, with much of it being radiated, was a relative measure indeed. Sia finally decided Caper was really asking, as she answered, "Because she wants us to be safe. Why else would she say it?" Caper adjusted the straps of his pack. On his pack, it was empty now, but wouldn't stay that way if they were lucky and resourceful. Sometimes they were. You had to be to survive as kids in a place like this. It's just that she says it every time. Sia unconsciously tapped her hands on each of her weapons, the ones that could be seen and the ones hidden for emergencies, comforting herself with the ritual that they were still there and ready to kill if killing was needed. She wants us to be safe every time. What's your confusion today? You finally catch the brain rot? I just think it's funny. Damn, he said as he stepped out from the alcove into the open street. He looked both ways as if these were the old days when well-meaning folks driving in their cars to and from work, school, or church might run a kid down by accident. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility that they could still be run down in a manner of speaking and killed just as dead could be, but there were no more well-meaning families cruising the streets of this city or any other as far as they knew. Everyone left would be hiding somewhere in these ruins or outside the city in the deserted reaches of the land. Funny how, Caper? Explain the joke to me. No joke. Get your panties out of a wad. I'm just saying that she says it every time, like she don't say it then, like if she don't say it, then we might decide to run off and be unsafe on purpose. It's just a thing people say, Caper, like don't get your panties in a wad. It don't really mean anything, but we say it anyway just for something to say. Well, that was all I was asking. You ready to go? Gunfire popped off in the distance, but it wasn't a great distance. Sia couldn't tell by the echoes if it were real gunpowder bullets or if they were pneumatic weapons. Both types had questionable accuracy, but would kill you just as dead if they caught you. Let's stick to the alleys and get going before we lead them to our door, Sia said. Okay then, Sia, lead the way. Oh, and be safe. She stuck up both middle fingers at him, but she did lead the way, and he followed as they weaved their way block by block. Caper tapped her shoulder and motioned with his head toward a broad opening in the cinder block wall beside them. Much of the building had long ago collapsed in on itself in a heap of crumbling stone and various other debris. It was long enough ago that spindly little pine trees had sprouted out of the shallow dirt gathered in among the bricks. Nothing worth eating, so what was the point? As the kids took cover behind what remained of the wall, they had to keep their feet still to avoid disturbing all that fallen stone. Sia had not seen what had prompted him to call for taking cover, but as dumb as Caper could be, she trusted that if he saw something he didn't like, there was a good chance she wouldn't like it either. Then she heard the voices. Like the gunshot, she couldn't quite identify them right away, but mostly she didn't like people, and she especially disliked strangers, so taking cover felt right. Sia dared to poke her head out to see what was what. It was other kids. They were older than her and Caper, but not by much. Still, they posed a real threat. Older kids got bored. They were stronger even when malnourished, and they got mean, even meaner when they were bored. As near as she could tell, they were half-heartedly playing some sort of game. Each had a weapon and was using it to knock an empty can back and forth between them. They didn't really seem all that enthusiastic about their play. Again, boredom spelled danger in kids their age, even if they hadn't gotten the brain rot. A few of them tried to bounce the can in the air before passing it over to a new player. One boy sat in the curve of a broken piece of drainage tunnel above street level. Sia guessed it was a boy. It was hard to tell with all of them wearing gas masks. Another person, maybe a girl, strolled over and sat down with him in that scant shelter. As the others played and barked threats at one another through their masks, this couple put their heads close together and talked quietly. Sia felt a real longing in that moment that she didn't have words for. "Sia, be quiet, boy, let me think." She interpreted the longing as a desire to get away from here without being noticed. "Okay, Caper, move, but do it quietly." He hardly disturbed a single rock as he slinked back out onto the sidewalk. They made their way around the corner of the falling building and up another street without being spotted. Arriving at the hollowed-out gas station and convenience store a few blocks further down, they didn't bother to search inside. There had been nothing there to find for a very long time. What they needed was outside anyway. "Damn it," Caper said. "Someone messed it up." "Keep your voice down." "But someone messed it up." I'm going to mess you up if you don't keep your damn voice down." "But Sia, look what they did. I see it. Just recover what you can and leave the rest. It'll either grow back or it won't." They knelt together, brushing through the trampled herbs. This was the risk of having anything grow wild out here. Sia hoped it was just ignorance and not blatant destruction. If it was on purpose, someone might still be around looking for whoever tended these herbs. Sia kept her head moving around the whole time, but saw no one. That could change in a hurry, so she tried to hurry. "I think that's all we're going to get," Caper said. "Hardly worth bringing the backpack. I could carry this little bit in my pocket. Put it in the pack anyway so it doesn't get crushed." "I'm just saying." He gathered the picked herbs in a wet cloth and placed them in the pack. She didn't like the smell of the area. The city stunk everywhere, but something about this smell felt poisonous. It wasn't rot or decay, something else. She wondered if the masks the older kids wore could protect her. Aunt Bee said they were a waste of time, but Sia didn't know for sure. They moved on. Sia sensed Caper's mood drop. He probably needed some comforting. For a kid growing up at the end of the world, he sure was sensitive sometimes. She had no energy to be his comforter, though, so they traveled in silence for a while. As they crossed under the cover of a partially collapsed overpass, they reached the next row of buildings and started to climb. A couple of the pipes that jutted out of the walls shifted and squeaked under their weight, but none of them gave out. They climbed to the uneven rooftops and crossed several blocks in the air. Coming to the recessed roof where part of the roof was missing, they took care to cross over on the metal beams instead of testing the sagging floor, falling apart under the exposure to the elements. Slipping through a hole in the next firewall, they entered the garden. Light fed into the place in dusty shafts from surviving windows and open holes around the structure. That light and the dripping irrigation from the bent gutters tied into careful place over the tables provided what the small plants needed in order to thrive a little longer. Okay, let's save that. Sia wondered again how many people knew this place was here. She'd never run into anyone else, but someone else harvested from time to time. It could have been animals of some kind, but she doubted it. It couldn't have been just anyone, or this place would be treated the same way as the exposed herb garden had been. They were careful to collect the small vegetables without hurting the plants. They also didn't take everything. Aunt Bee was specific about that. Being too greedy could rob you of future blessings. That's what the old woman said anyway. Sia suspected that was just one of those sayings that really had no meaning, just a thing to say to people. Caper met eyes with Sia, and she had trouble reading his expression. There was emotion there that didn't quite seem to go with the benign act of picking vegetables. She couldn't tell if he was sad or scared. She could probably have just asked him, but she worried it might be a long story that resulted in them being out here long after dark. So Sia just said, "Let's go," and they went. Along the rooftops a while longer, they came to the end of the row. Sia swung over the drop to climb down the sheer side using the hidden handholds. Caper clicked his tongue a couple times. She took the hint and climbed back up before crouching at the edge. Then she saw it. A moment later, she heard it. A great machine tore its way down the highway. It mostly dodged the debris of rusted-out wreckage in the lanes, but still clipped a few of the pieces that had not been salvaged long ago. Some of those car chassis broke apart in oxidized dust, while others tumbled off the shoulders of the road with a clatter. The engine of the vehicle roared again, and it picked up speed as it raced along. Not far behind it, 3 other vehicles, much like open motorcycles, but with more wheels, closed the distance. More of the gunfire pops sounded. She was pretty sure those were pneumatics, essentially overpowered slingshots. The projectiles punched holes in the armored hull of the fleeing truck. The truck did not slow as it approached the collapsed overpass. It tried to squeeze through at full speed, but then bound up with a crash, getting itself impossibly stuck. She imagined whoever was inside getting splattered. The cycles took their time wheeling up behind the trapped vehicle. It's going to be hell getting through there again, Sia said. Those people are in trouble. Of course they are. Probably they were bloody pulps, but she left that unsaid. Caper looked to her and then out on the scene again. Should we help? We should not, she said flatly. Seems a shame to just let them be killed like that. Sia sighed. Before she could say anything else, gunfire erupted from both parties. Looked like they weren't all pulped under there after all. The pursuers first tried to take cover behind their bikes. One of them fell. The others raced for better cover as they continued to reload and shoot. She couldn't see how the people from the truck were faring underneath the bridge. Come on, she said. They won't notice us now as we move along. She climbed down the hidden footholds in the wall. Caper followed and said, it just seems a shame. She knew the right thing to do was to say nothing and just keep going, but instead she snapped at him and said, what's gotten into you? Because I don't like seeing people die? Yeah, sorry about that. We don't know those people, Caper. Well, not yet. We didn't used to know each other. We didn't used to know Aunt B, right? That's your point? She hopped down from the last few feet of wall. Caper climbed all the way down before stepping off. Seems like there should still be people worth meeting and helping, seeing as we're still here. That's all I'm thinking. The middle of a motor chase and gunfight isn't the best time to make new friends. We need to go. We need to finish our job, and we need to get back. He stared at her a moment and then shrugged. You're the boss, I guess. Would be a shame if those were good people out there getting killed. She turned away and started walking. Would be a bigger shame if it were me. I guess someone should have told them to be safe before they headed out today. Funny, real funny, Sia, he said as he followed. The gunfire eventually died off as they made their way down to the river. They didn't fish for anything, but they did check their snare traps. We got one, Sia said. Make sure it's really dead. What are you saying, Caper? Of course it's dead. I just don't want the thing waking up once it's in my pack on my back. Sia took a knife and made sure it was dead. Since she already started, she quickly skinned and wrapped up all the parts before Caper packed it away. Across the river, a man slumped at the edge of the opposing bank. His legs trailed out into the water. He leaned over his own lap, where green and black sludge dripped thick from a split in his skull into the shallows of the water. This man was in the late stages of rot. Why didn't folks like that have the decency to just go die somewhere dark and private instead of out here where he'd foul the water, she wondered. 2 mean-looking dogs shifted around into view where they locked onto the man's skin and jerked backward to tear off pieces to eat from the meat over his ribs. One of the man's hands, I apologize if this is too gross for anybody. One of the man's hands lifted and swatted weakly at one of the dogs eating him. No, it wasn't a swat. He was petting the dog's mangy side as it finally tore away a strip of meat. The hand fell back to his side. He was still alive through all this, but had no real idea, let's say. Had no real idea what was happening to him anymore. One dog and then the other lifted their bloody snouts and tested the air. They stretched their necks and sniffed out over the water. She picked up the sound of at least one of them growling. Already their eyes leaked greenish black gunk. Let sleeping dogs lie was another of Aunt B's sayings. These dogs weren't sleeping, but it seemed good advice in this case just the same. They left the riverbank and reached the edge of the highway again, far down from where the chase and gunfight had taken place. Caper asked, "Do you like me?" Sia stared at him before going back to scanning the roadway and the buildings rising around them. "Why would you ask me a question like that? I just want to be sure there's a person that cares that I'm here." She sighed. "I care about you a lot more than those people fighting down the road. How's that?" "Sure, I guess." Stop being weird and keep your eyes open. I need you watching my back, not getting distracted. Whatever you say, Sia. They crossed the highway in a rush. This time they both looked in each direction. There had been some recent traffic after all. The engine noise from the cycles rose, but the vehicles never came into view. They weaved back through the city, pausing one more time as the older kids in their masks strolled along a boulevard. The boy and girl from the broken tunnel were holding hands as they walked along behind everyone else. The others kept kicking the can along the road as they went. As Sia and Caper waited for the can noise to diminish in the distance, he took her hand in his and laced their fingers together. Leah thought about the couple strolling through the street. Then she thought about a man rotting from the inside, petting the diseased dogs that chewed him apart. Let me put a comma there. I'm already making corrections anyway. I might as well handle the little stuff. She cleared her throat and shook Caper's hand away from hers. Stop. Don't be weird. I don't know where your hands have been. What do you mean? All the same places your hand has been. I seriously doubt that. She made her way across the now deserted roadway. What's that supposed to mean? He called as he followed. Keep your voice down and just come on. They reached a different door from the one they exited. Sia carefully tapped out the code on its metal surface. A muffled voice from within said, Who is it? What'd you bring me? Sia growled under her breath. Damn it all. Caper stepped forward. Stop screwing around and let us in, you little brat, right now. The young boy unlocked and opened the door. Caper shoved the kid backward and said, That stuff isn't funny. Don't ever leave us out there. As Caper continued the scolding, Sia sealed the door and took the pack. She followed the smells of cooking into the kitchen and presented the findings to Aunt B. The old woman smiled and said, That will do just fine, kids. Good work as always. Someone trampled the herb garden, Caper said. Oh, that's a shame. Aunt B organized the new ingredients and continued cooking. Some people got trapped on the road by marauders, Caper went on, and I think they might have gotten killed. Oh my, I'm sorry you had to see that. That's why I always tell you to be careful. Sia rolled her eyes and stepped away before he decided to say something about the dogs. We came back alive, though. I'm proud that you both did. Very proud and very happy. Sia climbed up a ladder in the hall and crawled into a room formed out of an old heating system duct. Her sleeping bag was bunched in one corner, so she spread it out under her again. A couple of her books had fallen over where they lined one wall, so she righted those. At the end of the space was a welded metal grill, and a plastic bubble fitted over that. Sia pulled a cord and lifted the bubble so she could get some breeze through the grate. The city stunk. It always stunk, but she noticed it more when she smelled the air coming through here. Still, the breeze felt good as the sun finished setting. She watched the many streets and levels of the cityscape that she could see from this perch. Sia remained there observing the ruins closely as she waited for dinner. She kind of hoped that the boy and girl holding hands might pass by again. All right.